Hi, this is Eric Davis from Little Stream Software. I'm going to go through a little app tutorial thing I built with pjax just to kind of get an idea of what it is. So first off, what is pjax? Pjax is basically push state in Ajax. It's a simple little jQuery library that kind of simulates a really quick, almost client-side MVC JavaScript user experience, but it uses Ajax and all of the server templates, all the stuff you have on the server side. It's a pretty small library. I think I looked at it, it's like 700 lines of JavaScript, and it's really significantly fast. I believe GitHub actually uses this on their repository browser. So I'm going to show you a little bit little app I built with it. So first off, we got a simple Sinatra app here. Nothing much to it. There's basically two routes, an index and then a goodbye. The whole point of this is I just wanted to have two different pages that I could show, going from one to the other, just to make sure that I'm actually, using pjax. The only real server component that you have to do is to look for a header in the HTTP. It's x pjax, and so in rack it comes across here in the environment, and then in Sinatra, when that comes through as a pjax request, you actually just turn off the layout. From what I understand, you don't have to turn off the layout. The latest version of pjax will actually kind of figure out, like, this is the full page with the layout. I'm only going to pull out the specific element that I want to replace on the page. So you might not even need to do this, but if you want a pretty good performance boost, if you turn off the layout, that's going to save you a lot of the rendering time and then the network transmission time. So, in Sinatra, which is basically two ERB templates and then turning the layout on or off. Let me show you the layout real quick. So just basic HTML5 page. The main part is the section here is the content. I also have a bit of debugging information here, which you'll see on the page. And then all I'm doing is loading jQuery, pjax, and then my actual application JavaScript. So let's take a look at one of the views here. So the index view, we have some navigation with some links, the title, and then a welcome message. And then goodbye is pretty much the same thing, just a different header and different message. So really simple. Whole point is I want to see pjax actually go into the server and working. So let's go ahead and run through it real quick. So here's the Sinatra app running. I'm going to bring up the console here. That's probably fine. Okay, so this is the network right here, and so you can see the main page load and then all the assets coming in. So here's the header, the HTTP headers from Sinatra, and then right here's some status. This is the server time when the page was rendered, a randomized number, and then a boolean, is this using pjax or not. And if you look at the layout, that pjax thing is just using this is pjax helper method that I did over in the Sinatra server. So that's just checking the environment. So that's just a little helper to say, yeah, pjax is being used or it's not. So all of this content, let me hop over here, all of this content is in the status area, and then there's the headers. But we're actually just going to be replacing this section, so the content part, which is, like I said, the navigation, the header, and then the little message. So we're on the welcome page. Let's hop over to the network part. We'll click goodbye. And it looks like there's an error. Let me see something real quick. Okay, so see we're on the welcome page here. And then we're going to go and click the goodbye. And when that happens, you see we still have all of this stuff, the loaded, the original load of the welcome. But then at the end we have this goodbye. And if we actually look at this request, we can see it's basically doing a request to the server, goodbye, adds in a pjax thing, and it's asking for content. So assuming if you want to actually do stuff on the server side, you can play with that. But I believe we'll see the header in here. So see x pjax true, x pjax container, and x HTTP request. So ask the server for that. The server response is just the partial. It's not actually the full layout. And then what pjax did is it actually replaced that content. So let's pull it open again. So the navigation, that pretty much stayed the same. Sorry to see you header, sorry to see you header, goodbye. And if we look here, randomize is 404, which is just a random number. If we click back to welcome, you can see that stays the same, time stays the same, but this up here changed. So I'll go back and forth a couple times, and you can see all of this, which was rendered when the first page was loaded, doesn't change, but the actual content and all of this stuff's changing. And you can see URLs are changing. If you hit back, it's, you got the whole browser push state stuff going on here. So it's pretty neat. Let's look at the actual code for this. So what I want to do, okay, so I'm going to pull open, goodbye's good, with the navigation links. So pull open our app.js, and so pjax has 3 different ways to kind of configure it. As I laid out in the blog post, they're actually all the same way, it's just a little bit different syntax. So I'm using the unobtrusive way. It's simpler, it's probably going to be what most people are going to use. And what I'm doing is selecting on content, and then calling pjax on all the navigation links. So pop back over here and we'll inspect this just to make it a little clearer. So I'm basically saying to tell pjax this entire content block is what we're going to be replacing, and to activate it, anything in navigation that's a link, so basically the welcome and goodbye, those are going to be the things that activate it, which is exactly what it does. So that's really all there is to configure it for the unobtrusive way. There's a couple other ways, but basically they're just different selectors. So this is a different selector for navigation link, and then using a CSS class of JS pjax. So that would work. All you would really have to do is change these. And then that would work. I mean, obviously this is a goodbye, so I had to change it in my index template also, but that's how you can do that. Or what they call the obtrusive way is you're actually using the whole document as a selector, and then calling pjax on whatever you choose as the inner selector. In this case, it's all links that have the data pjax data attribute. That's kind of an interesting case, because what you actually do is you want to type it out, or you want to make it so that the value of that is the actual container you're replacing. So let me do one right here. So this is basically these lines right here, and this JavaScript is basically is the same as this unobtrusive one. Now the really neat thing about it is when you're using the whole document, you can have pjax links anywhere. Like it could be in your header, it could be inside the content. You can see some of the comments here. I said that when you're using the semi-obtrusive and the unobtrusive, they only work when your inner part, the part that's calling pjax, is inside of the content, which is your container. So if you have like global navigation links that are outside of the area you want to replace, like say they're in your layout, you really can't use these ways right here, because pjax just isn't going to be able to find it. I mean, it's kind of the same, it kind of combines the selectors into something like this. But if your navigation and stuff, like I said, is outside, it's not going to work. So doing the whole document like this works pretty good, and then you just add a data attribute. Now, an interesting thing you can do is with the data attributes, you can actually replace different areas. So you could have, some of them replace the content, but then if you have a different div, like a main or whatever, or say you have like a sidebar, actually sidebar is probably a good idea. You can have different links using pjax and replace your sidebar or your main section. So it's pretty neat, it's pretty flexible. I played with it a little bit. From what I understand, you can actually use it like this too. You can do the unobtrusive way, which would mean you just have standard looking links, but then you can kind of override specific links to do specific stuff. So in this case, all of the links in the navigation would replace the content area, but this goodbye one would replace the sidebar. So it's pretty neat, it's really flexible. And in case I didn't cover it, pjax just looks at the href to figure out where you're actually pulling your ajax from. So it's really simple, you don't really have to code very much. And the nice thing about it, like let's actually do something here. So this would actually break, like say I actually coded an error here, and I said nabdiv or whatever, if that would basically prevent pjax from working. And so in that case, what happens is basically pjax doesn't fire and the browser's default thing works, which is to you know navigate to the link like normal. And since you're using all the server-side stuff, it's nice because you don't really have to code up two different copies. You don't have to have two copies of every template and mess with a lot of routing stuff. And so this is kind of nice in that you can throw pjax into an existing application, do some stuff to kind of enhance some pages, and then worst case scenario, there's an error in pjax or JavaScript or whatever, your site will degrade back to a normal browser with links. So it's pretty neat. I'm considering using this on a couple apps. So it's, once again, you can get on GitHub. It's a jQuery library, and I think, in the README that talks about how to use it with Rails, like I said, I used it with Sinatra. It's, like I said, really easy. You're just looking for a header, and I think I saw it in here. Yeah, and so there's actually plugins you can use if you want to do stuff. Like, I think one plugin for Rails automatically enables all links. Some of them do some other stuff. There's a Django, there's a ASP.NET, PHP, Grails, Express. So, pjax as a concept's, pretty neat. And server-side, there's not a lot you really have to do. So even if you had to roll your own server-side stuff like I did with Sinatra, it's really not that hard. So that's a quick overview of pjax, and then also using Sinatra with it. Once again, all you really need to do is look for that header and either turn a layout on or off. And like I said, I think the latest version, you don't even really need to mess with the layout. You can just use tell pjax to pull out a fragment. So that's it. Once again, this is Eric Davis. I'm talking about pjax. Take care.